Most of us spend our waking hours staring at the desktop icons of our own minds. We click on the stressful email, we scroll the endless social feed, and we react to the notifications, completely ignoring the code running underneath. This default state is what cognitive architects call a responsive variable, or R1V. R1V is an operational mode where the external world acts as a fixed constant, and you are simply the variable yielding to whatever happens next. When you wake up and immediately check an alert, you let the outside environment dictate your internal state. Your attention is captured by chaotic inputs before consciously deciding how to begin your day. The alternative is becoming an autonomous variable, or AV1. In this mode, you stop reacting as the user and start writing the rules as the system administrator. This diagram illustrates a cross-section of human awareness. To reach an AV1 state, you must move past the bright top floor of conscious thoughts, descend through the dim middle floor of lifelong habits, and reach the bedrock foundation where your core operating system lives. If you leave that foundation unexamined, it doesn't stay empty. The algorithms of your streaming services, your workplace, and your social circles will quietly write the code for you. Reclaiming that code requires a foundation audit. This means physically installing 4 load-bearing mental walls, known as the 4-dimensional pillars, or 4DP. The 4DP is the core operating system upon which all conscious decisions rest. The first pillar is target. A target is not a rigid pass-or-fail goal, but a directional pull. It is the specific orientation that gives your daily efforts a trajectory. The second is truth. This requires stripping away the expectations inherited from your family or society and isolating the convictions you actually own and are willing to defend. The third is totally. This is absolute commitment. Hedging your bets or keeping one foot out the door creates structural weakness that will eventually break under pressure. The final pillar is title. This is the act of naming exactly who you are becoming through conscious choice, rather than accepting a role assigned to you by your environment. These are not optional suggestions to pick and choose from. They operate as an interlocking unit. If you remove any single pillar, the structure cannot bear weight and collapses. You can possess immense energy and discipline, but without the 4DP fully installed, those resources scatter. The result is high-resolution aimlessness. Once the internal foundation is stable, the architecture scales outward. Phase 2 forces a shift from engineering the isolated self to navigating the external network of the world. Phase 1 was about tuning your own instrument, learning the rhythm of your body and the patterns of your mind. Now, you have to understand the acoustics of the concert hall where you are actually playing. Every day, you operate within hidden environmental physics. Just like traffic patterns, economic structures, and weather systems constrain how fast a car can drive, external social and professional systems dictate how effectively your internal habits can function. When you interact with these external systems, you generate a relational field known as the third. The third is the invisible, shared space created between you and another person or environment, requiring mutual alignment to function. If you try to force your internal habits onto an environment that doesn't share your goals, you experience field confusion. The system stalls because you are demanding deep co-creation from a space built for shallow broadcasting. True agency is realizing you are not the sole author of reality. You have to adapt and co-create with the external field, recognizing that fighting the environment wastes the energy needed to navigate it. To accurately navigate that external field, abstract behaviors must be translated into formal logic. Phase 3 introduces a diagnostic notation system that allows human actions to be debugged exactly like software. This diagram shows the core architectural syntax, A over B synthesized with C over D. The numerators, A and C, are the iterators. These are the internal variables you bring to the table, like your raw desire, your time, or your specific skills. The denominators, B and D, are the delineators. These represent the context. They are the external environmental forces, the social norms, or the available resources that surround your actions. The slash mathematically indicates filtered by. This visualizes a strict rule of this framework. The denominator always governs. Your internal content is entirely shaped by the external context it sits within. Finally, the synthesis operator, the circled plus, shows how two distinct relationships integrate. It maps how multiple variables combine to form a single functioning learning system. Writing your life out in this notation removes the emotion from failure. It provides a literal map that exposes the exact point where a behavioral system breaks down. Let's apply this diagnostic map to a real scenario. Imagine you want to learn a new skill. We write this as your curiosity filtered by the support available, synthesized with your time filtered by the engageability of the material. If you have high curiosity but zero mentorship, the support denominator collapses. If you have free time but the learning materials are inaccessible, the engageability denominator shatters. The top half of the equation is full, but the entire system still fails. Looking at this map proves the breakdown is environmental. You do not lack intelligence or discipline. You are simply applying high-quality internal variables against hostile external constraints. Fixing this requires the inversion kick. The inversion kick is a mechanism where you deliberately alternate between actively driving the content and yielding to the context, preventing you from developing cognitive tunnel vision. When we map our lives mathematically, the cycle of self-blame ends. We stop trying to force discipline into broken systems and start surgically redesigning the environments that surround us. Phase 4 takes these formalized, localized behaviors and scales them across decades. This is how micro-adjustments compound into a massive life architecture. The core unit of this scaling is the quarter-second. A quarter-second is a phenomenological unit representing the granular texture of lived experience, the exact fraction of time where all real choices are made. This chart shows the root square, a visual representation of how individual quarter-seconds compound over a lifetime. The hierarchy flows inward. Discrete actions, the fruits, compound into skills, or leaves, which weave together to build major capabilities known as branches. To see the specific mathematics of how this growth occurs, we can isolate just one node and look at the fourth quarter principle. This diagram reveals a strict 3+1 structure. 75% of any capability is the construction of its individual parts, but the final 25% is the active, real-time integration, or overlap, of those parts functioning together. That overlap is non-negotiable. Without it, you just have a list of disconnected skills. The synthesis is what produces a unified field that simply did not exist when the components operated in isolation. Mastery occurs when these separate systems begin to fire in unison, creating a multiplicative effect across every branch. This is the complete pathway. You audit your internal foundation, map the external field, formalize the friction points with algebra, and scale the results through the root square. It dismantles the assumption that meaning is a hidden treasure out in the world, waiting for you to stumble upon it. Meaning is constructed. It is a structure you actively design and build, utilizing your experiences, values, and relationships as the concrete and steel. Think of the mind as a grand theater production. The daily anxieties, arguments, and fleeting thoughts are merely the actors performing under the stage lights. Activating the meta-mind is the capacity to step off that stage, sit in the audience, and finally rewrite the script of your own life.